Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of the Arma 3 dedicated server on Linux video series. This video is going to go over some server advanced configuration files and also show you guys how to get mods installed on the server. If you're looking for how to get started and how to get the server installed, please see part 1 of this video series. Alright, let's get into it here. So the first thing we want to do is get into our non-root user that we made last video. All right, you can see we're on our Steam user that we made. Let's go ahead and get into our Arma 3 server installation directory where we put the Arma 3 server. And yours should look something similar to this if you're following along with me. So the first thing we want to do is let's go ahead and the first configuration file is going to be the server config file. So using your favorite text editor, go ahead and make a file called server.cfg. Inside of this file, we're going to copy and paste these parameters. Now I'll briefly go over what some of these do. However, if you want to go super hardcore into this stuff, I will put the link to the wiki page for this, and you can sort of read up on what all of these parameters mean and if you want to change any of them to something different. However, these are the ones that I'm going to be using. So, real quickly, BattleEye, this is going to be the BattleEye anti-cheat. Put this at 0 if you don't want it to run on the server. Put it at 1 if you do. Verify signatures. This is going to be how you only allow certain mods in on the server when players connect. For instance, setting this to 0 means you don't care what mods people load into your server with. Setting this to 1 will mean that you're going to restrict the mods to the ones that you currently have set up on the server. Password admin, this is going to be the password people use to log in as admin on the server when the game is running. Password variable here, this is going to be if you want your server to have a password to join, you put it right here. Hostname, this is what the server will be called, and it also be what shows up in the server browser. Max players, self-explanatory. This MOTD, this is message of the day. You can put messages here that will show up in game on the bottom left of the screen. You can put multiple messages too by using a comma. Force difficulty, this is super important. Make sure this is set for custom. Skipping on down, headless client, I'm actually going to be going over that in a separate video, so we'll ignore that for now. And last but not least, the mission section. This is actually pretty important for today's tutorial. So make sure you have it set up like this. You can change this name right here if you want to something different. It doesn't matter. However, make sure that difficulty is set to custom. And we're going to come back and change the template here in a second and just leave class parameters blank for now. So once you have all that pasted in, go ahead and exit and save. All right, as you can see, we've got the server config. So the second config file we are going to be creating is a performance configuration file. So again, using your favorite text editor, let's make a file called performance.cfg. For this one, we're going to be putting in this information here. Oops, 1 second. Again, I'm not going to go into detail of what this is. I will link the wiki for this one as well, and you can read up on values. However, the reason I want you guys to make this file is for when we get all done and set up and you're in your server testing phase, um, if you ever get any really bad desync or lag, this is going to be a file that you may want to tweak and change the settings in. Um, so, yeah, let's go ahead and exit and save this one as well. All right, so inside of the Arma 3 directory, we should have two new configuration files called performance and server. Our last configuration file is going to be the profile config and the difficulty settings for the server. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our home directory. And if we do an ls-al, we can see that there's a folder called .local. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into that folder. And then we're going to go into share. And you can see here we've got Arma 3 folder, an Arma 3 profile.json file, and an Arma 3-other profiles. This is the one that we want. So we want to go into that directory. And to do that, it's a little weird. What you're going to probably want to do is you're going to do cd, start typing in Arma, and then hit tab, and you should get this \3, and then you're going to hit another backslash, and you're going to hit space tab, and that's going to auto-populate. Since there's spaces in this file name, it's really kind of wonky to type it in the terminal, but if you do it the way I just showed you, you'll be all right. So once you have it like that, go ahead and hit enter, and let's see what we got in here. So there should only be one profile in here called player. And this was actually just auto-generated from the previous video, if you followed along, where once we got the server installed, all we did was quickly run the executable file just to make sure that everything was working. However, we don't really want to use a default profile. So once we're in this directory, what we're going to do is we're going to make another directory, and we're going to give it whatever name you want. Just give it something that you can remember, because you're going to reference the profile name in another config file here shortly. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to just call it profile1. Okay, so we got our directory. So let's go into that directory here, and we're going to make a new file called profile1 dot, and this is very important, Arma 3 profile. So you want to make a file called, the name of the profile that we're in. Make sure the directory name and this file match up. So, we called the directory profile1. So make sure that the file is also called profile1. And then .arma3 profile. This file extension is important. Make sure it's spelled just like that, case sensitivity and everything. All right. So this is where our difficulty settings for the mission are going to live, and some other parameters. So I'm just going to copy and paste. Again, I don't know if I said this yet or not, but I'm going to put all of the configuration files that we're making, I'm going to upload them to probably GitHub, and I'm also going to be linking all the configuration parameters. I'm going to be linking the Wikipedia page that goes in depth and sort of explains all of them. So we're just going to ignore these for now, except for this one. This is another important one, setting the difficulty to custom. Once you do that, once you have difficulty set to custom, you need to sort of tell the server what values you want for that custom difficulty. So just leave that the way it is, leave this the way it is, leave this the way it is. However, this middle section here, this is sort of the meat and potatoes of everything. So again, I'm not really going to go through this right now. if you use my configuration file, I've went ahead and put some comments in here on what everything does and all that. If you want to change any of it, you can change that just simply by, looking at what values it accepts and then setting, the value to whatever, 0, 1, 2, whatever it wants. Um, so, however, I'm just going to leave the ones how they are because that's how I like it. And yeah, again, I will post some links in to the wiki in the description so you can go through and read and change anything you want. So once we have this in here, let's go ahead and exit and save. So we should have now this file in our profile directory. Awesome. Let's go ahead and go back to our home folder. All right, now let's go into our server directory. Okay, so the next step is after we've got all three of our server configurations set up, we need to give the server a mission to load, right? So if you remember from this server config file down here in template, it says there's a mission name. Now what happens is whatever template is set to, the server is going to go into this MP missions folder and look for this mission name. So what we need to do is we need to put a mission into the folder MP missions. For the sake of this video, I so happen to have one already in there. So, boom. So the important piece is when you put a mission file, a PBO file in this MP missions folder, these names have to add up in order to get the mission to load. And you'll notice inside of the server config file, you don't see the .pbo. So you always leave out the .pbo. So, yeah. Okay. So we've got our 3 configuration files and our mission. So the next thing I want to show you guys is how do we make all this run? Because if we simply run Arma 3 server, the 64-bit, it's not going to use our configuration files. It's not going to run our mission. It's just going to run the blank, just the server executable. That's it. So in order to get our server to run with our custom difficulty, to get it to run our custom mission, and to use our configuration files, we have to invoke this executable with some parameters. And what those parameters are, there's a list of them, but there's only a few probably that you really need to use. And this is going to be the actual command that we're going to use. So I'm going to run through this real quick. So here's the command that you will actually be entering to run the server, right? So you're going to run the server, and then your next command is the profile name. And notice it's that profile we created earlier in the .local/share folder. Okay, so you put the profile name here. For your server configuration file, you put that server config file we made right here. You've got your performance file or dash.cfg. Now these are kind of extra. You don't really have to do these, but I like having these, and I'll explain why. So limit FPS. This just puts a cap on the server FPS. You don't really need to have that in there, but you can if you want. Enable HT. I recommend definitely having this one in here. This is enable hyperthreading. It's just going to help the server performance. Load mission to memory. Again, another server performance thing. Auto init. Auto init is going to automatically initialize and start up the first mission that is in this server.config file. However, so again, you can put multiple missions in here. What you would do is you would do another entry with class, and maybe you would have like test mission 02, and you would have another mission there. And then you would have, class test mission 03, and you would have another mission there. So by doing auto init, this will just automatically load the first mission. If you don't want that to happen and you want to pick the mission whenever you connect to your server, then remove this line. And whenever you join your server, you'll be able to choose the mission that you want to play if you have multiple if you have multiple missions entries into your server config file. Huge pages, this has to do with performance again. It's memory pages. Go ahead and put that in there. No logs. This is probably one of the parameters that you will be turning on and off depending on if you're having problems with your server or not. No logs, if you invoke this parameter, it will help your server run faster. However, if there's a problem with your server that you're trying to figure out, you won't get any logs to really see what's going on. So sometimes when you load these missions in, the server just won't do anything. It just will loop. When that happens, you're going to want to run the command without no logs in there. That way you can get the logs and you can see the text on the screen and troubleshoot the problem. And then the last parameter is dash mod. This is where you start the server with any of the custom workshop mods that you've downloaded and any creator DLC that you want. So if you remember in part 1, when we downloaded the server, we downloaded all of the creator DLC. And here are the code names you would use for that DLC. So for instance, we are currently loading in Global Mobilization and SOG Prairie Fire as our creator DLC. If you want more, you just add more by doing so WS and CSLA. But I don't want those right now. So in fact, we're just going to run GM right now. And yeah, so let's copy all of this. And from inside of our server installation directory, we are going to run this command. And I'm actually going to get rid of this no log so you can see some of the text on screen of what happens. And this is going to, again, like I said, run the server with our custom difficulty settings that we specified, our custom server configuration, performance configuration, all that good stuff. So you can see it's already loading in some of the DLC here. You can see here it's telling us that we've got global mobilization loaded in, Art of War, contacts, tanks, all that good stuff. Come down here, and this is a good thing. You want to see starting mission. You should see the mission that it's starting. It's this mission called Sandbox. It's on the world Altus. And mission red, that's good. If you don't see a loop of these things on the screen, so like for instance, if there's something wrong with the mission and it can't successfully load, you'll continually see like a loop of like these like 3 lines here. It'll say starting mission, mission world, mission failed, starting mission. It'll just keep looping that. So only seeing this once is a good sign. And it looks like our server should be up. So I'm going to get the game started real quick and see if we can see our server. All right, so we got the game started. Let's see if we can find our server that we have running. If we go to server browser, and mine's currently just running on LAN. We can see there it is, boom. If you remember, that was the sort of the fill-in for what I had the server called. You can see it's on the mission sandbox, and let's hop into it real quick. I did set a password for this one, and that's where you put that password at. And boom, we've got a dedicated server running on Linux. running custom difficulty settings and running a
Read
custom mission.
147168. Waiting orders.
Pretty sweet. And you can tell that our difficulty settings are working because if you look at the weapon info on the top right, you can see I have mine set to fade out, and it does fade out. So we are working just like we should. Awesome. Let's go back to our terminal window. All right. That concludes part 2 of this video series. Go ahead and keep an eye out for part 3, where I will go over how to download mods from the workshop and how to start your server with those mods. Again, thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you need help, and I will see you guys next time.